Well, China is pushing back, the country filing a dispute with the World Trade Organization over chip export and manufacturing equipment controls imposed or under consideration from the U.S. and its allies. The complaint centers around recent moves from Japan and the Netherlands, both countries agreeing to limit the export of chips and equipment used to make advanced semiconductors. This comes in addition to existing U.S. bans on semiconductor shipments to China. And Rachelle, for those looking for some context on all this of course comes from what the U.S. came down with back in October, one of the most stringent export controls in place that prevented American companies without a license to export U.S. technology, export U.S. equipment, and then utilize American citizens to help develop chips over in China. Essentially, the U.S. saying, look, allies, you've got to pick sides. Japan and the Netherlands so far appearing to go along with the U.S., but there's one other big X factor in all this, which is South Korea. Samsung, SK Hynix, one of the biggest chip makers, and certainly China's foreign minister meeting with South Korea's foreign minister, they're trying to press them to say, don't go along with the U.S. rules, because that would really, really be kind of the death knell for China and their development.
When you think of how much China has really positioned itself to try and be the largest trade partner for so many countries, whether in Europe or as they are the biggest trade partner with the US, this does create a very, very difficult dynamic. And as you mentioned, China pushing back, the Chinese Ministry of Commerce confirming that China has initiated that dispute with the WTO. And this is about, so they want to see, they're accusing the US of obstructing normal international trade in chips and also abusing export control measures. And this comes as China is trying to build up its own industry at the same time. They're considering a $143 billion, that's a 1 trillion yuan fiscal package to really support its semiconductor industry. Now, this is supposed to roll out over the next 5 years, but it's also supposed to start kicking in, according to some sources at Reuters, in the first quarter of next year. So clearly, with every step, they're trying to match each other in this. There really is this global competition for who is going to be ahead in the next phase of the high-tech future. And we know that this is something that China is depending on for its next phase of economic growth.
Well, and you talk to those who follow this space very closely, every one of them will tell you that China is just not equipped to build out advanced chips right now without machines coming in from a company like ASML over in the Netherlands or from the U.S. And so if they're unable to do that, that essentially derails all those plans, Rachelle, that you just pointed to. On the WTO claim specifically, though, the U.S. has said very specifically that they don't believe the WTO is the place here to be discussing it, because they see this as a national security issue, not necessarily a trade issue. I'd imagine this is a discussion that's going to continue for a while. But to your point, there is a global competition for chips used in everything from our iPhones to cars. I mean, you name it. And that is why we are seeing so many countries who are taking part in this, really deciding which direction they want to go. And the U.S. trying to woo more countries on board with where they want to do, which is essentially to shut China out.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's a race that we did see coming. When you have the two biggest economies, they're going to butt heads. As much as they have, a dependence on each other in terms of trade, there is that competition, and it just seems to be getting heightened the further we get into the high-tech space.
Yeah, and semiconductors right at the center of it.